Matthew 27, 1 and 2. At dawn, all the chief priests and the elders of the people held consultation against Jesus in order to execute him. Now, they've discussed this beforehand. They've thought about this. Even at one time, they tried to attempt to grab him to go out and stone him, but he escaped, was led by the Spirit, and escaped through their midst, which kind of just means that he went through the middle of them, but nobody was able to grab him, which was because the Lord was protecting him. We see Satan kind of quoting that when he was tempted Jesus about him, and lest he should dash his foot, Well, that was kind of fulfilled there when he was doing what he was supposed to. But Satan was trying to use it to have him test God. So at this point, they're not just discussing the idea of killing him. They're plotting and putting a plan to have him. It ain't just something they're saying out of anger. At this point, they're plotting and getting a plan. He's pretty much at this point, it's a trial, really, more than anything. And before, it was just them talking. So now, they're seeing what to do with him, because they want to get rid of what Jesus is doing in his movement. And many people, over the course of time, have tried to stamp out the faith and tried to remove Christians, but even Rome tried to eliminate it, and eventually Rome decided they couldn't, so they stopped and accepted it and made it legal. So nothing has been able to overthrow Jesus, but that doesn't mean people ain't going to try to stop the faith, and this is what this trial was about. Not just put a death to him, but everything Jesus stood for. Try to get rid of it. Verse 2. Having bound him, they led him away and handed him over to Pilate, the governor. So Pilate was Roman. So this means it's debatable, because argued somewhat that some scholars understand Jews could do stonings, because they did stonings and there's no Roman reprimand. But to actually do capital punishment and wasn't allowed. So there's some confusion and conflict there because they allowed stonings. But Jesus was going to be tried by the Romans, which would have been crucifixion, was what happened. Why they pushed for Roman influence isn't actually stated. It's just why they didn't. We see through Scripture how God, what led that to happen. About that verse, cursed is a man that hangs from a tree. There's Scripture to back up the reason why he was crucified. But the reason why they changed to that isn't known. You think they would try to make the example themselves? Maybe they wanted, there's some Scripture that may lead to this idea. Maybe they wanted Rome to stand behind removing this movement, because to do that, continue it, would be defying Rome. Which once Rome would get involved, Christian persecution would skyrocket, and they would do more killing of Christians than the Jews themselves would be able to ever. So maybe that's the motivation behind them sending Jesus to Pilate. But either way, this was part of God's plan. And it was the purpose of the cross. Because the Jews didn't use the cross, it was just Romans.